All right, welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're not just looking at what happened in Indian history. We're going to go a level deeper and ask something, way more fundamental. How do we even know any of this stuff? We are peeling back the layers on how the entire story of India's past got written, how it was pieced together, and sometimes how it was fiercely debated.
I mean, really think about that for a second. How on earth can we possibly know anything about the lives and beliefs of people from thousands of years ago? Well, it's like a massive historical detective story. The past, it doesn't just talk to us on its own. We have to interrogate the clues it left behind. Everything from silent stones to, well, some very powerful words.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this whole detective story. First up, we're going to put on our archaeologist hats and try reading the ruins for those early, silent clues. Then we'll see what we can learn by looking through an outsider's eyes, the accounts of foreign travelers. After that, we'll dig into the state's official story, the version told by powerful empires. And finally, we'll see how all these threads get woven together to forge a nation's narrative with the birth of modern India.
So, our first set of clues, they come from archaeology. We're talking about the physical stuff left behind. Cities, artifacts, bones. They give us a direct window into the past. But it's often a pretty fragmented and mysterious picture, especially from the time before written records could speak to us clearly.
Now, the clues from the Harappan civilization they're fascinating. When you find standardized bricks and weights across this huge area, it suggests a really organized, maybe even a centrally planned society. And when archaeologists find copper mirrors in the graves of both men and women, it kind of hints at shared ideas about the afterlife. But, as you can see in that last row, there is a major, major catch. And this right here is the great puzzle of the Indus Valley. They had a written language, but we can't read it. It's literally like finding a library full of locked books. They left behind these incredible cities, amazing artifacts, but because their script is a total mystery to us, the Harappans themselves, well, they stay silent. And that brings us to this huge breakthrough moment in our detective story. For centuries, ancient inscriptions all over India were just as mysterious as those Harappan seals. But then, in 1838, an officer from the East India Company, a guy named James Princip, he finally cracked the code. He deciphered the Brahmi script. And just like that, suddenly the stones began to speak. And this is what they said. For the very first time, a ruler could speak to us directly across 2,000 years. This is the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka, and through these inscriptions, he tells us his title, Devanampya Piyadasi, which means beloved of the gods, and he shares his deepest thoughts and his state policies with everyone. So you see, what's incredible here is that these inscriptions give us so much more than just names and dates. Ashoka's Dhamma, it wasn't a religion in the way we think of it. It was a moral code he wanted for his entire empire. He even appointed special officials just to spread the word. This gives us a direct look into the mind and the mission of a king from over 2,000 years ago. It's amazing. All right, let's move on to our next set of clues. For centuries, travelers from all over the world, we're talking Greece, China, Persia, Europe, they all journeyed to the Indian subcontinent. Now, their accounts give us these incredible eyewitness details, but they also force us to deal with the tricky problems of perspective and, well, bias. Wow. This stark observation, it comes from a Dutch traveler in Mughal India. Now, while the official court records might be painting this picture of imperial grandeur and wealth, an outsider like Pelsart, he could see a completely different reality, one of extreme poverty and what he saw as oppression for the common person. And this is just a perfect example of the historian's dilemma. On one side, you have the French traveler François Bernier, who looked at the system and saw a tyrannical king who owned all the land and was crushing the peasantry. But on the other side, you have the official court historian, Abul Fazl, who described it as more of a social contract. The king gives you security, and in return, you pay revenue. Two totally different takes on the exact same system. So who's right? The truth is probably somewhere in between. These travelers' accounts are also just fantastic for the specific and sometimes really surprising details they decided to write down. Visitors were absolutely amazed by the speed of the postal system, which used these relays of runners.
They wrote about the incredible agricultural productivity and these huge, bustling cities. But they also recorded some pretty jarring realities, like the open sale of enslaved people right there in the markets. These are the kinds of details that bring an era to life like nothing else can.
Okay, so we've heard from the ruins and we've heard from outsiders. Our third set of clues comes from the state's own version of history, the official chronicles. Now, these were not neutral reports. Oh no, they were carefully crafted documents designed to legitimize a ruler, project an image of absolute power, and make sure the empire would be remembered exactly the way the king wanted it to be.
Just look at the process for making a single Mughal chronicle. This wasn't just some person writing a book. This was a massive state-sponsored production. Every single step, from the calligrapher using the emperor's favorite script to the gilder using actual gold, was meant to create an object of immense power and prestige. These weren't just books to be read. They were works of art meant to scream glory and permanence for the empire.
And get this, a key part of the Great Chronicle called the Akbarnama was a section called the Ain-e-Akbari, which was, for all intents and purposes, a 16th century imperial database. This just reveals the Mughal state's obsession with information and with control. They documented everything: army ranks, revenue statistics, even the philosophical traditions of the people they ruled.
Now, this whole drive to document and control, it wasn't just a Mughal thing. When the British East India Company took over, they also produced these exhaustive records, like the famous Fifth Report. Their incredibly detailed land surveys and revenue reports, they served the exact same purpose: to understand the territory so you can better tax it and control it. For empires, old or new, knowledge really is power.
And that brings us to our final set of clues, and a really big shift in perspective. Because here, history isn't just something that's discovered. It's something that is consciously created. We're looking at the deliberate act of writing a national story. And there is no better example of this than the framing of the Indian Constitution. This was the moment. A new independent India had to decide what it was, what it stood for. And the Constitution, it was not written overnight. No way. It was the product of nearly 3 years of intense, passionate debate in the Constituent Assembly. Every single clause, every right, every power was argued over by representatives from all across the country. This final document was forged in the fire of debates just like this one. I mean, take the issue of separate electorates for minorities. B.P. Kar Bahadur argued passionately that they were absolutely essential for Muslims to have a real voice. But in stark opposition, you had leaders like Sardar Patel, who called them a poison that had led to partition and would just divide the nation forever. In the end, Patel's view won the day, and that profoundly shaped the nature of Indian democracy. And this reveals the tragic irony of that moment. While all the leaders in Delhi were writing the official story of a brand new free India, the nation's most famous architect, Mahatma Gandhi, he wasn't celebrating. He was in Calcutta, fasting, trying to stop the horrific violence of partition. It's such a powerful reminder that for him, the story of freedom was completely inseparable from the tragedy of division. So, as we've seen, history is never just one single story. It's a narrative that we build from all these different, often conflicting clues, from ruins, from travelers' tales, official decrees, and foundational texts. And that brings us to a final question for you to think about. As we keep uncovering the past, whose voices are we still missing? Whose stories haven't been told? And maybe more importantly, who holds the pen to write the next chapter of this ongoing story?